Today's readings for the Tuesday of the 20th week in Ordinary Time. The first reading is Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 1 to 10. So, what I see here is God humbling somebody who is far too proud, and really, really intense imagery here. Ezekiel's good at this stuff. And so he says here, he talks about how he thinks he's so great and wise because he has wealth and he has intelligence. And here God tells him that he will bring against you foreigners, the most barbarous of of nations. They shall draw their swords against your beauteous wisdom. They shall run them through your splendid apparel, showing how silly, and even in our day and age, how silly people who have wealth, but no real ability. Any person can wipe out another person. We are not so strong as we might think we are. And so these people that think they are above God, above the law, above other people even, God will humble. And here he's saying he will cut down this king who thinks he is God. And so that's what I got out of the first reading. And then the second, the responsorial psalm is from Deuteronomy chapter excuse me. I'm sorry. Did I say what the first reading was? It'll be in the post. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 26 to 27, A and B, 27 C and D to 28, 30, verse 35 C and D to 36 A and B. Actually, I don't even need to say that stuff since I posted in the video. I'll stop doing that. I'll just say where it's from. So the responsorial psalm is from Deuteronomy chapter 32. And it is I who deal death and give life, is the response. And so once again here, God is asking us to consider we are his creation. We are so far beneath him that it is he who determines truly the success of our endeavors. He deals death and gives life. He is in full control here. And yes, he allows us, God's permissive will allows us to bear the effects of our wrongs and even our rights and our hard work. But those who fully trust in God's plan, there's a great writing by St. Alphonse de Liguori. Everyone should read this. It's not very long. It's called Uniform with God's Will. To be at peace with God's will no matter what happens, knowing that this is the kind of confidence you have, knowing it is I who deal death and give life. God can bring good out of any evil we see in this world. And he may give us goods as he pleases as well. Doesn't mean don't try. Obviously, you try to live a virtuous life for love of God, though, not for love of praise of your virtue or for wealth or for security. Granted, these are lesser goods to aim for because we need these things throughout our life. But our highest end is the love of God. And with the love of God comes everything we need. Whether he deals death or life, God is doing it for our good and the good of the whole world. And so the part of the psalm besides the response that really jumps out for me here is how could one man rout 1,000 or two men put 10,000 to flight, unless it was because their rock sold them and the Lord delivered them up. So meaning that God was behind their victory, no matter how great their skill or ability was. It's like the story in the Old Testament where God sends one angel, and I think it's believed it's St. Michael, but still, one angel goes and overnight slays at like 180,000, 185,000 of an army that's coming against the Israelites, and just one angel. And there's millions, if not billions of angels. One angel wipes out 185,000 men in one night. And that's just one angel. So there's an idea of God's incredible power. But I mean, his power is absolute. But still, just the idea, he has created a creature, the angels, and their power is ridiculous compared to even ours. So how much greater is God who created these angels? It's just something to humble you. Don't boast um, outside of God. Recognize if somebody praises you, say yes, thank you. Thank you is a good thing to say, and then if you can, give that praise to God. Point that praise to God. God has allowed me. God has given me my gifts, my abilities, that I'm able to do this. And then the Alleluia verse is from 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9. Jesus Christ became poor, although he was rich, so that by his poverty you might become rich. So with God humbling himself to make himself man, humbling himself further to suffer as a life of toil and humility, to humble himself further to take ridicule and scorn and blasphemy in his ministry, and to humble himself further to be tortured and killed. And then he rises from the dead, and he ascends to heaven. But then he humbles himself also in that to this day to make himself our spiritual food under the appearance of bread and wine. So God has done all of these things so that we can become wealthy, so that we can go to heaven. And so these are great gifts. God, who, once again, God is all powerful, and he did these great acts of humility, the greatest acts of humility, and sacrifice and self-giving for our good, because he loves us. And so once again, the power of God, if God is all powerful, like it's shown in the first two readings, he gives life and death. He puts this king who claims himself to be God, killed by foreigners. So he who has the power to do these great things also has the power to do this Alleluia verse, to make us wealthy by giving so much, by making himself poor. And then the gospel is Matthew chapter 19, verse 23 to 30. And so here it's talking about how I don't know the context of this, because I find this is what sticks out for me. So in this, Christ is telling him how difficult it is for people to enter the kingdom of heaven, right? And he reemphasizes it, talking about a camel. It's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. And so he doubles down on this, that it's difficult for one who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. I'm wondering what the word rich here is translated from or to, because the disciples, when they heard this, it says, when the disciples heard this, they were greatly astonished and said, who then can be saved? I don't know if rich means it the way us and our American culture mean it, because it might just be somebody that, has possessions or has comfort maybe in this life, because they were astonished when they heard this. They said, who can be saved then? And not everyone was rich by our standards in the gospel by far. And so I'm wondering how intense this saying really is, because and once again, going back to the king who thought he was so great because he was good at making money and influencing people and intelligent and had riches. And we ourselves, too, have been given all of our gifts. We all have different gifts we have been given. We have riches in different ways. And we also, especially anyone in America, we are so wealthy compared to everyone else. We are so rich. We live better than most kings ever have in the history of the world. Just somebody in America. And so with this saying, who can be saved then, when they're astonished at this? And so he says, for men this is impossible, for God all things are possible. Just yesterday we had, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Everything we have is God's. Everything we have should be put at God's disposal. We should ask God every day, what do you want me to do? When he gives us an abundance of wealth or food or talent, we should use that to serve others, not necessarily make money off of it. You can make some money off of it because that's the trade in our day and age. But when you have an abundance of gifts, give them away. As God, who has full abundance of all gifts, gave them away to us so that we could become wealthy. And so to be imitators of Christ, we should not hoard our riches or boast of them. We should be thankful for everything God has given us. And when we can, help others. Use our blessings to bless other people. Use the gifts God has given us to give away to others in our abundance and even in our need. If you really want to take Christ and you're called to it, it's like how St. Francis literally gave everything he had, didn't even leave the clothes on his back. St. Anthony of the Desert, when he was called, if I recall the story correctly, he heard the gospel about the young man that we just had, I believe, the other day. Go and sell what you have and give to the poor. His parents passed away and left him with a good amount of means. He set aside a small portion for his sister so that she would not want until she came of age. And I think when she came of age, she actually became a nun. But he gave away everything else, and he went to the desert. Once again, an imitation of Christ there too. And he offered prayer and penance. So St. Anthony the Great and St. Francis of Assisi are two things that come to mind of this idea of being radically detached and giving even from their needs to others. But we should be poor in spirit and be detached from the things of this world. We can be thankful, we can use them, but we should not hold on to them as if they were ours. They are gifts given to us by God to use for our good and the good of others. But they're still God's, because like with the psalm, it says, "It's I who deal death and give life." So anyone in our culture who boasts about being wealthy or having fame or influence or all this stuff, they are given that to give to others, to use for others' benefit. And they have a responsibility to do that. They should not be legally made to do that like socialism or communism would be, because those are godless ideologies. But if they have an abundance, they shouldn't boast, "Oh, look at how much I have." They should rather be humble and say, "Oh, look at how much God has given me. What can I do for others?" Right? Because the more you have, the more you should give. God has given you gifts to give to others and to serve others with. We don't boast about them. We humbly acknowledge that it's because of God, even if we've disciplined ourselves and refine those gifts that God has given us. He's given us the ability also to be disciplined and refine, to not have us struck down by foreigners, like the guy in the first reading who, thought he was all that and whatever. And so this humility and this obedience to God and this gratefulness, that the last thought, which is just a quick snippet, but it was the essence of the best homily I ever heard. It was the Thanksgiving Day homily. Being grateful for the gifts God has given us, being grateful even for the sufferings God has given us. The saying was by this wonderful priest that I love so dearly and pray for every day, is that if we are always grateful, if we are always thankful, then there is no room for bitterness. So if we thank God even in our sufferings, there's no bitterness. This is a beautiful path of holiness and sanctity, a beautiful path of peace of soul. And yes, it will be difficult to do, but you will have that peace. And so be grateful instead of bitter. And those are my thoughts. Have a great day.